me, guys.
We're so glad you're here. Rossana is the president of Casa de Venezuela, a bilingual nonprofit organization here in the Delaware Valley, whose purpose is to advance the cultural heritage of Venezuela through a range of programs and services, all of which we'll get to in 1 minute, or some or much of which. But first, Rossana, we'd like to start with giving us a sense of your Highlands, like your favorite spots, your favorite places, your vistas. Like, how do you picture the Highlands when you talk about it? What is your spot in it?
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like we are so blessed to live here in the Highlands. The best thing for me is the trees all around our neighborhood and the beautiful walk side where we can see people walking their dogs and neighbors waving to each other and actually talking to each other, because it's a small community. So it's fantastic to get slowly and steady getting to know everyone.
So you have roots in Venezuela. Tell us about your journey from Venezuela to this neighborhood.
Okay. Well, yes, I was born in Caracas, the capital, and I moved to the United States when I was a young girl. We moved to North Carolina, to the Triangle, Durham. In fact, that's where my parents still live, and a brother. So long story short, my husband and I met while we were working, and we have a beautiful baby. In fact, now we have 3, but the first one was born in Durham. And he went to law school in Durham, and then he had an internship in Dover. So that's kind of a little bit of the reason why we moved to Delaware. And that was a shocking experience. It was the first time out of, moving to a different state for me.
Yeah.
As an immigrant, you tend to be close to your nucleus family, your parents and your siblings.
Right.
So that was the first time that I got to move. But to my surprise, I didn't know at the time, back in 2008, that Dover was the biggest Air Force
Sure.
in the country. And to my surprise, there were a lot of Venezuelan families in the area. So it really was the highlight of the year. We lived in Dover for a year, and then we moved to Wilmington, and we haven't looked back. Now we have 3 kids. So it's a little bit of a rest, little journey, but we love it.
It is. And that's amazing, because I didn't know that fun fact that that Delaware had such a large Venezuelan community in Dover. So
yeah, in the Air Force, serving as reserve. So it was really astonishing for me too, and my husband. He thought he was taking me away from the Venezuelan community in North Carolina, and he didn't succeed. Down there.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Venezuelan culture? Like, what is their music or dance or art like? What is it known for?
So Venezuelans are a Caribbean. We are on the top of South America. So we face the Caribbean Sea. We are right beside Colombia, Brazil, and Guyana. It's one of the countries that has the biggest oil reserve and the biggest natural gas reserve. So it used to be the most wealthy country in the hemisphere. People are very friendly, very happy. They will make a joke even in their darkest time. And I think that is an amazing kind of attitude to life. And people in general are very diverse. We haven't ever been immigrants per se, but we have welcomed a very diverse population throughout our years, especially after World War I, World War II. We have a lot of Europeans coming to South America, and we were home to many of them. And through the crisis in South America, many Colombians have moved to Venezuela, many Peruvians. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the current humanitarian crisis that we face, but now all those countries that we welcome are welcoming are Venezuelans who've been forced to fled due to political unrest. So it's a beautiful circle, but also it's been a learning experience for Venezuelans because they haven't been an immigrant before, a forced immigrant. So it's been an interesting journey, and especially in the last 7 years where everything have gotten worse.
Yeah, it sounds like from my quick, due diligence to try and understand better, it sounds like it's a major component of the population has been forced to leave the country, like a fifth or something really quite significant, correct?
It's actually 10% of the population. And I am honored that you guys giving me this opportunity and this outlet to talk about it, because a lot of our communities are not really familiar to this situation. Yes, it's at least 7 million of Venezuelan immigrants have fled in the last at least 7 years. So it's the worst humanitarian crisis. We don't have a conflict like a war, a declared war, but because it's due to political unrest and in economic situation right now, we have a hyperinflation. So people are finding desperate measures to survive and to help their family. So it's an interesting, so yes, 7 million people, that's about 10% of the current population in Venezuela. And one of the saddest thing is that many of them, it's kind of like a brain drainage, the people, it's kind of like by waves. The people who leave the country first is those who have a job offer, or it's wealthy and can go to another country to study and to continue their studies. So now we are seeing, and that's a little bit of how we measure how deep the crisis is that now the poorest people are traveling even by foot around the region. So it definitely needs some more attention. And what happens, the USGLS organization says that what happened globally matters locally. And this is extremely true for this situation, because we've been forced to open Casa de Venezuela, Delaware, and we were forced to do so because there are so many Venezuelans coming to the state of Delaware that they need an organization that kind of welcomes them into like the American system and kind of caters them around to help. We want to be able to help these citizens to be part of the community, be good citizens in general. So, and that's our hope.
You once again, you're transitioning nicely to where we're headed, which is tell us more about the specific programs. How does Casa de Venezuela support those in need? What are the kinds of programs? It seems like there's a whole bunch of great cultural stuff, but it sounds like you're talking about some real orientation and really community building stuff as well.
Yeah. So Casa de Venezuela was founded in 2004. So it's been 17 years in the Delaware Valley, mainly because the situation in Venezuela wasn't so bad. It was a cultural organization. It was important for Venezuelans who grew up here in the United States, and for the new generation. In my case, I'm a mother of 3 bicultural children. If I don't tell them about my country, they won't really be able to know about my country, because sadly, you cannot travel back and forth like perhaps other families can do so.
Yeah.
If I don't teach them, my kids, about our music, or if I don't cook our food, it's hard for them to feel part of such culture because they're growing here in the United States. And so you need to have one of these organizations that help you mold and and build the next generation of those Venezuelan Americans. So because of the unrest in the country, we have been forced to do a lot of advocacy work due to the humanitarian crisis. Recently, one of biggest accomplishment was the President Biden, proud to say, a Delawarean, granted TPS, it's called temporary protection status, for many Venezuelans who didn't have a legal way to be in the United States and wait for them to work in what their career path was. We have known, and many dentists and doctors and engineers that were driving an Uber, or they were working in a restaurant. So by having the TPS, they were able to have that temporary protection status and be able to work and have health care, which is extremely important when you're going to a new country, a new community. So that's a little bit of what we've been doing. Obviously, education, it's a huge part. So we also have a partnership with Light Scholars. We believe that's one, it's a great Delaware organization. And we believe that only through education is when you can really tackle problems, societal problems. So we help these Venezuelan families to know and understand the educational system. So their kids can continue, go to college, go to school and go to high school, because we have a different system. But we try to literally be the house, la casa, the house, a safe harbor for this new community around. So
how do you think about literally what, I don't mean that this the word that occurs to me is leverage or lever. What levers do you think about when you think about how you create community? You know, what are the tactics or tools when you think to yourself, okay, we have this community, they need X. How do you start to parse through what the needs are and then begin to prioritize how the organization is going to respond?
But that's the $1 million question.
Good. It took me a million minutes to ask it.
No, the way we try to tackle it's slowly and steady. First of all, through education, doing these sort of events where I'm able to talk about my country and able to talk about the challenges that we have as a community that is unseen for many, because when people think about the Hispanic or the Latino community, mainly think about Mexicans. We have a huge Puerto Rican community here and Dominican community in the area, but the Venezuelan community is relatively new. So we're still kind of in the shadows. So this is when Casa Venezuela comes and sends you an email and tries to work with you, hopefully 2022, we can work with Delaware Art Museum. We have great artists who have, that we have here in our state. Why not making an exposition highlighting Venezuelan and other minority groups' art? I think an easy way to share and to make community is sharing a plate. Arepas is a Venezuelan dish that is shared with Colombians as well. So I think it's important to open spaces that we can share our food and our culture, and slowly and steady. Being able to, to say hi. Many of you in the Highlands have seen my flag. I take my flag in front of my house. I switch them back and forth. In fact, something very interesting. I don't want to bore anyone here in the chat group, but Venezuelan and the United States go way back to our founding fathers. There is a statue of one of the Venezuelan founding fathers in front of the Franklin Museum. There's a statue of Francisco de Miranda because he fought for the American Revolution. There is also Simón Bolívar, who is the South American liberator. He liberated Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Panama, and Ecuador, 5 countries in South America. And he was inspired by what he saw here in the United States. So we have a very intertwined history. Our Constitution is the same, our values, democracy, human rights, and freedom of speech are stuff that we have in common. So when you try to breach the gap on what looks different on the outside, perhaps my accent, we are very similar on the inside in our values. So I think it's important to have spaces like this one to highlight that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm talking too much, I'm a talker.
No, but I mean, that is the intent, because we do want to hear from you. And so you started to mention some really amazing people, and little fun facts that I did not know that we had statues. So who are some of your heroes, especially as we talk about Venezuela and the history of it?
My heroes?
Yes.
Okay, as a definitely, I will say there is the former ambassador of the United Nations called Diego Arias. He's a strong advocate for the current political situation. That's kind of like in a professional level. But I'm going to be a little cheesy here. My heroes every day are my kids and my father. You know, it takes one thing that makes America great, and my husband very eloquently has always reflect on it, is that we have the people who have immigrated here. It takes a lot of courage to leave what it's known to you, your house and your comfort zone and your environment, to take a leap of faith and immigrate to America. So one of my heroes is my father, who didn't know back in the 1990s that, you know, he took his family and came to the United States, and it has been one of the greatest things for our family. So it sounds cheesy, but
I think that's a really
I will send him this video so he can feel proud.
That's awesome.
Afterwards.
It is. I mean, I can't even fathom how scary it must be to move a family, not have financial stability, to speak a different language, and then have to figure out how to assimilate successfully, which obviously, I mean, you're a shining example.
That's what makes America great, truly, you know, like the exceptional people that take that leap of faith and come here and work hard.
Yes. So let's talk about your family. I know that you have a very close-knit family, and obviously with your reference to your father and your husband and your amazing children, right? So can you share a little bit about your family and how they are your community here?
Yes. Well, so I am happily married for 14 years. We have 3 kids. My husband is Cliff Gardner. I never changed my married name. I wanted to keep it, you know, very representational. And it's been funny to see people calling me, hey, Mrs. Gardner. And now that my kids are in school, it's always very confusing for people. My kids do not carry my name, so it complicates the whole thing. But yeah, I have 3 boys, Henry, who's 14, and Miguel Angel, who is similar to Ernie's age. They're in the same grade. He's 10 years old, and Simone, who is 7. So that's my little family, and a little Bichon Frise, who's a troublemaker in the Highlands. who, as soon as we open the door, he takes off and he walks around like he owns the neighborhood. And let me apologize to everyone seeing this video for the troubles that he makes around.
Just dynamic child. That's just dynamic behavior. That's all, right?
Just takes off.
I'm interested in, you've talked a lot about sort of integrating or adapting, right?
Yes.
Specifically, that's or reorienting, right? To some of the work that both you had to do and you help others do. You really do pay your lessons forward, but you're also retaining what's central to your cultural heritage, right? So I'm interested in how you think about what is ultimately must feel like a bit of a tension, right? Does that make sense? Like
you mean like to
the
raise
balance.
like a family by culture?
Yeah, how do you think about that balance? Because it's both integrating into and also retaining. Like it's like an interesting give and take as you describe it. It just had never occurred to me. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, yeah. Well, that's an interesting question. So my husband takes the credit for all, he went to school for history. So my husband takes all the credit for talking to the whole family and about the American history in the past. And so we have a good background. He's well
You got an
spoken.
expert
So
right there in the house.
yes. So, and then I've been in the United States for most of my, half of my life. So we get into some arguments because I should be speaking more Spanish in the house. And the kids know Spanish, they can read it, they can speak it, but they don't have that constant practice except with me or my family. So I will say that that's the struggle.
Language.
It's interesting because I feel very Venezuelan when you see a group of Venezuelan friends, or like very Latina, very Hispanic. We just embrace each other, and I'm a hugger. I kiss people, and I'm very welcoming in my community. So it's a challenge, but slowly we're doing it. I think immersing yourself in, we have such a diverse community all around. You can go to anywhere, and you will have somebody speak Spanish. You can practice the little, it is a challenge, but I hope you had to ask that question to my kids. I should have answered that way from the beginning.
Yeah, it just occurred to me as you were describing it, because identity is kind of what we keep and what we discard. And it's just an interesting, your family's an interesting spot with that. So it's really neat to hear from you.
Yeah. I'll do a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of the flags sweeping in my house. The Independence Day in the United States is the 4th of July. Venezuela is the July 5th. So, we cater a lot of Venezuelan food. We make a lot of Venezuelan food in the house. We try to share it. So if you feel like Venezuelan food, just knock my door and I'll be happy to.
I was going to say, that was my kicker for the end of the call. When you were talking about sharing a plate, I was like, right here.
It's important. We should do that.
Breaking bread. So bring us back to the neighborhood a little bit, if you will.
Yes.
I get a little, I don't know, maybe I over-index on this sort of thing, but is there a memory? I'll share mine. In fact, I bumped into you there. Is there a Highlands memory that you'd like to share with us? Some moment when the Highlands played a prominent role. And I'll mention mine was the Halloween parade a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I might have been the most Highlands thing I've experienced. So something like that for you that you can think of?
Yes. So we've been in Delaware for a long time, and we wanted to be part of the Highlands. It's one of the greatest neighborhood in our state, to be honest, in the city. We work very hard to make that happen for our kids. I have few highlights. The fact that my kids can walk to school for the first time, it's amazing. But going to Rockford Park with our dog, seeing the people talking, enjoying the beautiful green areas that we have, that beautiful Rockford Tower, walking around to Trolley Square so easily back and forth. It's beautiful. Any time during the year, it's gorgeous. So walking around the neighborhood, it's really breathtaking, and yeah, it's a highlight.
Do you have any wishes for the neighborhood? I.e., if you could just, I don't know, you get to make a wish. I wish we had X. I wish this for my neighbors.
Yes. I wish we can pass this Zoom call into the spring and the summer in person, to have more in-person gathering. Hopefully we can make our own Highlands festival or potluck where everybody can bring a plate and we can share. Although it's not very popular during COVID times, we can work those logistics later. Hopefully, I know our councilman Nathan Field is in the line, so hopefully we can have enough signatures to close the street by Rockford Park, so this winter the kids can be safe through the snow. I'm putting Nathan Field now in the spotlight. But we have a wonderful, wonderful neighborhood, and I just wish there's less trash. So every time I encourage everyone to walk around and get a bag and pick up little trash, because we have to really take care of what we have. And it is a blessing. It sounds very cheesy. It is a blessing, but we just need to take care of our community, and doing this, it's how we do it.
100%. So as we begin to wrap, so if anyone has questions, feel free to ping them in the chat, or you can come off mute. But Rossana, can you tell us how we could get involved maybe with Casa de Venezuela, or how we can help the Venezuelan community?
Yes, thank you for that question. I will put the website in the chat group for our organization. Always donating, it's an easy way to help our community right now. If you have any connections with any other organization that wants to partner with us, I am all for it. I also will put my phone number and my email on the chat group for everyone to have it. My dream is that we can eventually have a Venezuelan festival here in Delaware, and that will be the first one of many. And the whole idea is to make everyone feel welcome, but also show that we can be part of something bigger, and these sort of events help. So thank you so much.
Oh, maybe I'm sensing maybe something at the art museum or Rockford Park. I think those local forums to help organize it like a fun festival.
You guys, it's 7:30. That's
Anyone have any questions in the chat, or does anyone want to come off mute? Just raise your hand. Oh, Charlie, hold on.
That's most refreshing, and you're extremely articulate. It seems that de facto you've been very selective in terms of the professionalism that has joined the Venezuelans that come into this community. That's commendable. There is a challenge before the city of Wilmington. I hope Bud Friel really believes this with me, and that is, I've seen the Latin American community and culture really disintegrate, frankly, over the last 60 years or so that I've been in Wilmington. And how can the Venezuelans and your leadership get involved in trying to get to the core problems of that part of Wilmington, and frankly, bring the crime rate way down? It's hard to believe.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. Yes, it's important to educate our community, to advocate for what we want in our neighborhood, in our state, and always being a welcome face with a welcome demeanor goes really a long way. But if my contact is on the chat group, I'll be happy to chat with you and see what we can come up with too. Appreciate.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. You guys, Rossana, thank you so much for joining us. Linz, another one in the books. Everybody join us next week when we welcome artist Wendy Hatch. Until then, I have a tagline for the show. You ready, Linz? Here's
All right, I'm ready.
You didn't hear it last week. Until then, we'll see you in Rockford Park.
See you later, everyone.